Okay guys, today we're going to be focusing on the rock opera and its Antichrist Superstar by the infamous Marylin Manson. The album is released on the 8th of October 1996 and it's a masterpiece of the era. The band was, back in the days, very controversial, and this album took about 8 months to be released. The beginning of the recording sessions are really unproductive. They see the members of the band fighting against each other acrimoniously, one of whom, Daisy Berkowitz, who is one of the co-founders of the band, who recorded Portrait of an American Family. He was repeatedly shut out from the recording session, and his equipment was repeatedly burned and destroyed. After a while, then the band cancels Daisy Berkowitz and they start to record. Trent Reznor, who is the mastermind of 9 Inch Nails, is the producer of the album. He helps the band a lot, creating that abrasive, synthesized sound in many aspects, and especially he is the one who from behind sets out the scene for the Marylin Manson's band to write. The concept of the album is encompassing and compelling one. It says this supernatural human being who starts being a worm and then he transforms himself and he becomes totalitarian, a demagogue who seizes the political parties and is very appealing to the echelon, to the point that he becomes the owner of everyone's mind, who threatens to annihilate the human race together with the world. So from this worm boy who starts his life in a very shy way, who is scared of basically doing everything, then he transitions to the angel with the scabbed wings, to the point that he becomes this demagogue who appeals very much so to the political parties, and then he owns them. At the beginning, trying to open their minds by telling them the truth, then he reveals the human race that, and the political parties that he had been so kind to enlighten them, but nobody believed in him. And then the totalitarian, nihilistic being threatens to kill everyone who gets in their way, in his way. So this album means a lot for the American society back in the days. Christianity is still a big thing in America. In 1996, groups of Catholics and Christians in general coalesce to put their strength together in order to ban this evil quote-unquote figure who is threatening the stability of society. So this person who wears lots of makeup, scary, this character who criticizes fiercely the political parties, especially the right-wing political parties and the Christian rights, who are very puritanical, who he also reveals that created him. So Antichrist Superstar creates lots of division among the people in America. So obviously he pisses off lots of parents, and in many respects is very rock and roll, because that's what basically rock and roll has been doing throughout the years. The kids loved it, the parents hated it, and this is what made rock and roll famous, standing the test of time. He basically updates himself and makes more abrasive and more violent, extreme. One recipe that was created probably a long time ago, probably 50 years prior to his rise. So this album starts to see Marylin Manson as not only being a band, but the presence of Brian Warner becomes a little bit overwhelming, and lots of other bands members start to be in the back scene, as opposed to his figure. But also the concept of the album, that is a totalitarian dictator who seizes political parties and is very appealing to the human society, who at the beginning hate him, but then they start to see this figure very charming and fascinating, having lots of aspects that are irresistible. So this worm boy who transitions into the angel with the scabbed wings, then he becomes a supernatural being inspired obviously by the Antichrist of the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. It's a figure that's very acrimonious. It's driven by resentment. It's spiteful. Not only in the lyrics, but everything is reflected by the music and the lyrics all together. Sleep deprivation during the recording sessions of this album was one of the main things. There's also something that Marylin Manson or Brian Warner revealed, and it was that during the recording sessions he was putting sewing needles under his fingernails, in order to test his threshold. Drug is a big thing, lots of cocaine going on, lots of, you name it, they did it. So hard use of drug in order to create this kind of hostile environment that reflects very vividly in the album, where the concept is such an incredible story, which is fantastic, but it's also very apocalyptic. So this figure that rises, this Antichrist, and the climax is by the Antichrist Superstar, the song, where lots of different synthesizers and monsters, ghoulish sounds are recorded. As I was saying earlier, so the climax culminates in the Antichrist Superstar, the song, where the totalitarian being acts in a certain way. He is now in power, he is in charge of the world, of the political parties. He is now dictating everyone and telling everyone what to do. He is also threatening them. It might be the last time that he's talking to them, because soon they will be erased. They will be out of this equation because they're not worth it. They're those people who were deceived and very easily swayed. And now that this supernatural being has taken hold of their brains, it would probably be the last chance that he's having now to talk to them and enlighten them. But his hope is very limited. So, rewinding now everything and going back to how this album was perceived back in the days. Especially I wanted to give you guys an analysis of how it was perceived in Italy. Remember guys, Italy is, it still is now in 2023, but back in the days in 1996, so in the second part of the 90s, Christianity and the Pope and the Vatican and everything was such a huge part of our culture. So when this album was being kind of smuggled among us teenagers, it was seen as an outrageous act. So the misfits, the weirdos like us, like me, were among those people who were being criticized and stigmatized for whichever music we were listening to. But especially when we came out with this mysterious artwork and imagery and lyrics. Also, we didn't really understand what the lyrics were and what the meaning of the album was, but we knew that it was something abrasive and extreme and very outlandish. In many respects, of course, he was crazy. It was like so Brian Warner's image was a thing that everybody was afraid of, frightening. Contact lenses, one blue eye or very clear eye, and the other one was black, and his bondage-like imagery and outfits. The other members of the band who used to wear like pots when they were playing. Also, the symbol of his stage act, which was resembling a little bit David Bowie's imagery as well. So all these things which are very graphic were the recipe for our generation of teenagers who felt a little bit different to be taken completely in this kind of world of dissent, sedition, trying to move away from the Catholic, puritanical, Sunday school, going to church every Sunday, praying, doing the sign of the cross at school, and all these kind of things that defined us Italians, especially Southern Italians, where Catholicism was such a big deal back in the days. So we all had First Communion, we all had confirmation, and the sacraments were such a thing. But between the transition of me having the First Communion and then having the confirmation, then, and this is my encounter with this outlandish, crazy figure who was Marylin Manson, and I fell fascinated, in love. I wonder who was the guy who first bought this copy of the CD of Antichrist Superstar. I still don't know it to these days, but I remember that this CD was going around my town, and we were just passing it to each other, and we used to record it from actually tape it over from a CD to a cassette. And I remember that my cassette was taped over from a tape which had already been burned from a CD to a tape, and then from the tape to my tape basically. I blasted it so loud in my stereo the first time I listened to it. The first track is Irresponsible Hate Anthem that sets the scene for something apocalyptic that is going to happen in the next songs. The album is very long-winded. There's many songs. I believe it's 16 tracks. This album, I believe, could have been a little bit shorter, but they're all part of the transitioning. Although I believe they could have been a little bit shorter, they all make sense. And there's nothing that is filling the gap. Everything is created accurately to create that kind of suspense, that frightening, hostile, hatredful environment that warns the humanity itself that something bad is going to happen to them if they don't listen to him. And then when they listen to him, he vents his anger against those people who are silly, who are very easily swayed. And that worm boy that starts his journey in this fabulous rock opera becomes the man that you fear. And by the way, that's the first song I ever listened by my favorite artist or artists, quote unquote, which was then Marylin Manson, the band, which then became Marylin Manson, the mind and artist that defined this long journey that to these days still impresses and creates lots of excellent work, helped by other artists, which in the next few episodes we'll be talking about. As promised, I was already into that kind of mindset that one day I will talk about one of my favorite albums of all time, the album that defined me, the album that gave me lots of inspiration entire life. And to these days, whenever I listen to it, it creates goosebumps in my entire body, and my skin boils because I love it so much. This masterpiece and concept album drew us all into this world of, into this alternative world of perceiving certain things which are irrelevant to many people, but for people like me are very compelling. Bye for now, I'll see you next time. Remember to subscribe. Alessio Di Maria is my channel, YouTube channel. Leave comment down below. I will be answering from time to time. And bye. See you next.